So at this point, we've gone over the principles. You've experienced the workout, and now let's see how the concept of R3, reacting to real-world stimuli, applies to exercise. We know R3, react, is all about task-driven exercise, but more importantly, we're speaking about play, creating novelty, and looking to derive cognitive benefits as we're exercising. So moving away from the world of conscious effort, we're trying to take it subconscious, trying to authenticate what might potentially happen in real life, whether it's a step walking down the street, or more importantly, whether it's athletic or sport specific. What we want to do is we want to realize that task and target driven exercise is different than external stimuli. Task and target refers to what we have with the Procedos. So if I have Marissa on the 20/20 right here, and I say, hey, take a lunge to the 6, go ahead. That sounds like an exercise, like take a lunge. But I'm like, you know what? I want you to get in, hit the 6, get out as fast as you can. Things might look a little bit different. The movement is the same, the exercise is the same, but the intent is slightly different. And this is the power of task-driven exercise as it relates to reacting to an external stimuli. And we know our external stimuli are auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. So we want to create environments and programming around the manipulation of those variables to once again begin to derive a cognitive benefit. Now, when we go into the world of the cognitive benefit, we're talking about something called task switching, or how can we have two separate tasks with different goals and our brain has to switch between the two. Now, this can be easily demonstrated by changing the external stimuli that the Procedos provides for us. So as we just heard, I said there's a difference between taking a lunge to the 6 and hitting the 6, getting in, getting out. We want to then add maybe a different exercise on top of that to begin to layer on and derive these cognitive benefits. So if we started by saying, hey Marissa, when I clap, I just want you to hit the 6, get in, get out, okay? We're going to start there and we're going to build, just like any program, the intensity by layering on different stimuli and different exercises that are going to create a task switching environment. So let's begin. If we just go. And we can see that there's a little variation in speed, and she's getting used to it, so the motor control pattern is being learned. She's adapting to the stimuli as said principle says. She's learning a little bit more as time goes on what I need to do. She's reducing her impulsivity to react without hearing the stimuli, and she's beginning to create a programming adaptation. And now comes the fun, because we want to add a second task to get her brain to be a little bit more alert, increase her sustained attention, but also create a new novel environment that's going to be a little bit more fun. So here's what we're going to do. It's going to be the height of my clap. So the noise input is going to be the same, but now we're going to add the visual height change of my clap, which is going to determine where she has to step on the platform. And here's how we're going to do it. The right foot still hits the 6, the 9, or the 3, and the height of my clap is now going to determine where she's going. So she's still doing the same exercise, but because of the different height, which is going to derive a different goal and a different motor output, she's going to have to react not only to the auditory cue, but process the visual cue of where I am in space to be more attentive, to create a different novel demand, and also to load her cognitive system slightly more than what we had with just the one input. So to kind of demo for us, and I'm going to stand up over here so we can kind of see what it looks like. If I clapped here, she has to go to the 9. If I clapped here, it's the 6. If I clapped here, it's the 3. So we have those different height variations that she now has to not only respond to the clap, but she has to use her visual system to process the height and create a different type of task where her distance is going to then create that more novel experience. So let's play the game, let's react to the stimuli, and let's see what happens if we start moving. There we go. Middle and left. Good. And relax. And as we've seen before, it does nothing but bring a smile to our client's face as they begin to kind of giggle at the novelty of it, but at the same time, how many lunges did she just do? We say lunges, but how many tasks did she also just complete? In real life, this could be walking down the stairs and having to react to something. This could be changing your pace while moving down the street. This could be in a game performance where you have to stutter step and get out as a ball might be coming at you, or you have to react to a defender or an alternate player. The applications are endless, but the principles remain the same. And as we're in this R3, this task-driven exercise and play module, we want to be very conscious of layering on our stimuli, being very clear with the rules, and making sure the challenge continues to increase so we don't become bored. Because the second we become bored, the task becomes mundane. Yes, we get the physical benefits, but we're trying to go after those cognitive benefits. And we know we have to get to a 70% threshold. At this point, that's what some of the research suggests of our heart rate. So we got to get things moving. What we showed here was a little bit of a snippet of that, but mostly this, along with different cues, will end up being somewhere around the 30-second to a minute long. Once again, increasing that heart rate. So maybe getting some quick feet, maybe getting some jumps kind of going on, something to continuously increase the physical heart rate while increasing the cognitive demand. Now, we went over auditory, we went over visual. Kinesthetic is our third cue that we want to begin to manipulate. And what I'm going to have Marissa do is line up over here on the left 90. And if we're talking about kinesthetic cueing, we want her sensory system to kind of feel the cue before her visual or her auditory system gets wind of what's going on. We know that tactile sensation is the slowest of the three inputs, so she might have to stutter around a little bit until her body gets used to the input and the reaction. However, in contact sports, however, in being able to respond to a stimuli in real life, but also working on that sustained attention of when am I going to feel the input to begin to react appropriately. Now, here's how it's going to work. She has two shoulders, her right shoulder and her left shoulder. What that's going to do is that's just going to denote which foot she's hopping with. Okay, the target is always going to be the 4. So if I tap the right shoulder, in she goes. If I tap the left shoulder, in she goes. Now, if we know from our reinforce section and our restore section, getting that left leg to come across is going to create an entirely different reaction than her right. And based on the scope of our expertise, we can manipulate this to potentially work on the ACL, potentially load the inside of the left hip, and the list goes on and on and on of potential applications. But all the client realizes is we're playing a fun game where she's transferring external stimuli into real task-driven exercise, creating this new novel experience that's going to allow her to be more engaged, put that smile on her face, but more importantly, derive those cognitive benefits. So if we're playing here and remembering we want to get that heart rate up, I'm just going to get her feet going a little bit, right? So we're going to get her feet going. She obviously can't see me, you guys can, so we know where it's coming. And she's going to have to be able to react to where this external stimuli is telling her to go. Here we go. And we'll relax right there. So of course we know if we now have our kinesthetic, we have our auditory and our visual, well, let's go ahead and layer on a little bit deeper. Let's understand what it would look like to maybe react to an external stimuli, but at the same time, have to use an auditory and a visual processing as well. So, kinesthetically, I'm still going to remain behind her, but now I'm going to give her an auditory cue that she's going to have to process in addition to the tapping. And the auditory cue is going to be a difference of numbers between the 1, the 4, and the 7. Remembering our challenge wants to meet the athletic capacity of our clients. We obviously can easily go with all 9 dots out the gate, but it might be a big move to feel a tap and have to get a left foot all the way off to the 9, especially if someone's just starting out. So we want to make sure that our rules, our challenges meet the skills of the client, so therefore we get into that flow state. We derive some benefit, and the brain's able to really kick up a notch and get excited about the game we're about to play. So we're going to get her feet going. The kinesthetic cues remain the same, but now she has to listen to my auditory cue of 1, 4, and 7, and the tap is then going to denote which foot she's going. So if she's getting her feet going, and just for trial, I say 1, that's a right foot to the 1. I say 4, that's a left foot to the 4, and so on and so forth. So, ready? We're going to see what this looks like in real time, knowing and keeping in mind that one of our variations is rate. And just like we can change the rate of any type of movements and functional exercise, we can change the rate of our auditory cues. thus working on the impulsivity of the client, the sustained attention, and also continuing to work on that task switching ability, changing the speed, changing the rate, keeps the brain alert and makes sure that we really stay focused on the task at hand. So we're gonna get going on this, get those feet moving. Marissa, you got it, here's a 7. Here's a 7. Here's a 7. Here's a 4. 1. 1. 4. 7. 1. 4. 7. Keep going. 1. 4. 7. 7. 7. 1. 4. And relax. So once again, the smiles become endless. The gamification components can continue to layer on, but we're mindful and remember, just like if our max bench press is 225, if we put another 20 pounds on there, that client might end up failing, if not injuring themselves. Now, it's very unlikely that they're going to injure their brain in one of these exercises. However, it might not be as enjoyable. It might create a little bit of a barrier. Their bodies might lock down and we might not get the intended result we're looking for, where this task-driven exercise, this gamification, the play component, actually produces the result that we intended to do. So we want to be mindful of the stimuli. We want to layer it on appropriately, but most importantly, as we're creating these games for the clients, we want to do something that's authentic to them. If they want more of an upright function, if they want more down to the ground, if they're on the ground and have to get up, if let's say they're a surfer, or if they're an MMA fighter or a jiu-jitsu guy and they spend more time on the ground, reacting on the ground with maybe a crawling pattern might be something that would be beneficial to them. The possibilities are endless, but the principles remain the same. We're talking about our R3 portion, reacting to real-world stimuli, knowing that our stimuli are auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and most importantly, task-driven exercise is about our external cues, removing the language of exercise and adding in the implement of gamification and play to create the environments where our clients will be successful, both with their bodies and with their minds.